Jealousy in the family business spiraled when my sister made false accusations that nearly ruined me. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but my family drama has reached Reddit story levels. For context, my sister Sofia 40F and I 38F grew up in a family where business wasn't just business, it was our entire identity. My dad started a small chain of specialty bakeries in our town back in the late 80s, and we practically grew up needing dough instead of playing with dolls. Now, as adults, the bakery has expanded into 3 locations, and my parents have slowly started handing over responsibility to us. I've been managing the financial side and operations, while Sofia has been more involved in the creative side, recipes, presentation, and customer experience. On paper, it should have been the perfect partnership. But the reality? Not even close. Sofia has always had a streak of jealousy. My parents leaned on me more because I was better with numbers and organisation, while she always saw herself as the visionary but didn't really handle the stress of managing staff or logistics. Dad once told me, "Sofia's got the flair, but you've got the backbone." I don't think she ever forgave me for being described that way. Tension really exploded about 2 months ago. One of our bakeries, the one in the city centre, had a huge issue. Several $1,000s went missing from the register over the course of 2 weeks. Obviously, this was serious, so my dad asked me to dig through the accounts and security footage. Before I could even finish my audit, Sofia went nuclear. At Sunday dinner, in front of my parents, my husband, and even my teenage son, she suddenly blurts out, "Sofia, I don't even know why we're pretending to look for answers. It's obvious who's been skimming from the register." I froze for halfway to my mouth. Excuse me, what are you talking about? Sofia, you've had control of the finances for years, and surprise, money goes missing when you're the one in charge. Do the math. My husband almost choked on his food, and my mom looked like she'd just seen a ghost. My dad immediately snapped. "Dad, Sofia, that's a serious accusation. Don't throw around nonsense at the dinner table." But she doubled down. She claimed she had evidence that I was moving bakery money into my personal account. The evidence turned out to be screenshots of transactions completely out of context that were literally payroll transfers and supply payments. I was shaking with anger, but also with the sick feeling of betrayal. This was my own sister, trying to paint me as a thief in front of my whole family. That night ended with my mom crying, my dad slamming his chair back and storming off, and me sitting in silence while Sophie Smubby stirred her wine like she'd won something. And that was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to 70 missed calls from my cousin Lena, who works as a part-time cashier at one of the bakeries. When I finally called her back, she whispered like she was in some spy movie. "Lena, just so you know, Sophie came by yesterday and told the staff that you're under investigation for stealing from the business." My stomach dropped. Investigation? She made it sound like I was being audited by the police. Wait, she actually told people that? Lena, yeah, she said you'd probably be stepping down soon. Everyone's freaking out. I felt heat rising in my face. Not only had Sophie humiliated me in front of our family, but now she was actively spreading lies to employees. Lies that could destroy my reputation and the trust I'd built. I called my dad immediately, and he was furious too. He told me, "I'll handle Sofia," but I knew his version of handling usually meant avoiding direct confrontation until things magically got better. Spoiler, they never do. That week at the bakery was hell. My staff looked at me differently, like they weren't sure if I was the boss or some criminal they were forced to tolerate. Even Marta, our head baker who's been with us since I was in high school, barely made eye contact with me. Finally, I confronted Sophia directly at the main bakery office. She was sitting at the front desk with her laptop, acting like she was some CEO queen. What the hell are you doing telling people I'm being investigated?" She smirked without even looking up. "Sophia, if you have nothing to hide, then what are you so worried about?" I swear, I almost lost it right there. "You're destroying everything we've built because you can't stand that, Dad. Trust me with the books. Do you even care about the business, or is this just about your ego?" That finally got her to look at me, and her eyes were cold. "Sophia, you've been Mom and Dad's favourite your whole life. They hand you everything and expect me to be grateful for scraps. Well, guess what? People finally see who you are." I left before I said something I couldn't take back, but I was shaking with rage. The real breaking point came 3 days later. I got a call from our supplier, Mr. Novak, saying he'd heard rumours that I'd been skimming money and that he wanted reassurance before renewing our contract. That's when I realised Sophia's lies weren't just family drama anymore. They were bleeding into the business, threatening livelihoods. That night, my husband told me, "If she's going to play dirty, you need to protect yourself. Get everything in writing, clear your name before she ruins it for good." So I did. I started pulling every receipt, every payroll slip, every bank statement for the past 6 months. If Sophia wanted a war, I was done playing defence. By the following week, the tension in the bakery was unbearable. Every time Sophie walked in, the air felt like static staff whispering behind their hands, awkward glances, and the faint smell of burnt pastries that somehow seemed symbolic of our family burning from the inside. I had compiled every record I could find, bank statements, payroll logs, supplier invoices, and even timestamp security footage. I wasn't just going to defend myself, I was going to prove Sophia's claims were entirely false. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Dad called a family meeting at the main bakery under the guise of discussing expansion plans. I arrived, files in hand, feeling like I was walking into a courtroom. "Dad, Sofia, I want us all on the same page. There's been tension, and I want it resolved." Sophie smiled smugly, confident she had the upper hand. "Sophia, I think we all know where the problem started. If you look at the books, it's pretty clear who's been mishandling things." She even had the audacity to gesture toward me. My hands clenched the files so hard my knuckles turned white. Actually, let's go over the books because I've got everything documented." I spread the statements and logs across the table. Dad leaned in, eyes narrowing, while Sophie's smile faltered slightly. I walked them through every single transaction, explaining supply payments, employee wages, and minor bookkeeping adjustments. "Look here, every dollar accounted for. The missing money is actually a mislabeling error in the system. Nothing was taken. I've cross-checked everything, and even the security footage confirms it." Marta, who had quietly been standing behind me, finally spoke up. "Marta, I saw Sophie telling the staff you were stealing. She even said it would be a shame if payroll got messed up. That's not just gossip, that's sabotage." Sophie's face turned red. "Sophia, I was just trying to. I thought you were hiding something. Everyone's talking. It's obvious." "Dad, Sophia, that's enough. You made false accusations, spread rumours, and put our business at risk. This isn't a game. You've hurt your sister and the staff. Sofia started to cry, but it was more frustration than remorse. Sofia, I wanted recognition. Everyone always listens to you. Me, Sofia, recognition doesn't mean destroying someone else. You can't build yourself up by tearing me down. There was silence for a few moments. Dad rubbed his temples, clearly exhausted from years of sibling rivalry boiled down into one disastrous week. Finally, he sighed. Dad, Sofia, I love you, but we need rules. No more spreading lies. You'll work with me directly for the next month on bookkeeping oversight, and you'll apologise to your sister and the staff. Sofia looked defeated, but nodded reluctantly. I felt a mix of relief and lingering bitterness. The worst was over, but scars had been left both in the family and in the bakery. For the first time in weeks, I finally exhaled. I had survived Sofia's jealousy-fueled attack, cleared my name, and kept the business from crumbling. But I also realised that trust with my sister wasn't going to be restored overnight. The days after the confrontation were tense to say the least. Sophie kept her distance at the bakery, hovering near the back office or disappearing into the kitchen whenever I entered her room. The staff slowly started relaxing again, but I could feel the lingering unease. Trust, once broken, doesn't repair itself overnight. I tried to focus on the business. New seasonal menu items, inventory checks, staff schedules, all my usual tasks, but every time Sofia appeared, my stomach tightened. It wasn't just about the accusations anymore, it was about knowing that she could try something like that again. One Thursday afternoon, Dad called a quick meeting in the main office. He wanted to discuss next quarter's expansion plan, but I could tell there was more on his mind. Dad, before we get into bakery stuff, I want to acknowledge what happened last week. Sofia, I expect an apology professionally and personally. Sofia shifted uncomfortably. Sofia, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have accused anyone without proof. I let my feelings get in the way. It sounded hollow, but at least the words were out. My mom, who had been quietly observing, added, Mom, actions speak louder than words. We all need to rebuild trust, Sofia. That includes with the staff and your sister. Sofia nodded again, quieter this time. The staff meeting afterwards was awkward. Sofia had to stand in front of everyone, explain that the previous rumours were false, and apologise. I stayed silent, letting her handle it. I didn't want to humiliate her, but I needed her to see the impact of her actions. That evening, I had a heart-to-heart with Marta, who stayed late to help close the bakery. Marta, I can't believe she actually did that. You kept your cool, though. I don't know if I could have. Me, I just couldn't let her ruin everything. But Marta, it hurts. I thought siblings were supposed to have each other's backs. Marta, sometimes love doesn't look like what you expect, but you handled it. That counts for something. Over the next few weeks, Sophie kept a low profile. She followed Dad's directives, shadowed me during financial reviews, and avoided pushing any more false accusations. Slowly, the bakery staff began to trust her again, though whispers lingered. Despite everything, I realised that the business itself was stronger because we'd confronted the issue head-on. Lessons were learned, accountability mattered, communication was non-negotiable, and letting jealousy fester would always lead to disaster. But the emotional aftermath was trickier. Every family dinner, every meeting, carried an unspoken tension. I couldn't help but notice that Sophia's smiles were smaller, her jokes more cautious. It was as if she knew she had crossed a line and she'd have to live with it. One Saturday evening, after the last customer left, I found Sophia in the back office, quietly wiping down counters. Me, you okay? Sophia. Yeah, I'm sorry. I let my envy get the best of me. I don't want to lose the family or the bakery. Her voice was sincere this time, and I nodded, letting some of the anger slip away. We went back to normal, probably wouldn't be for a while, but at least there was a start. I realised that surviving jealousy and false accusations wasn't about winning a fight, it was about protecting what mattered and setting boundaries, even with family. Following weeks were a strange mix of caution and small progress. Sophia seemed determined to make amends, at least superficially. She started volunteering for tasks she previously ignored, double-checking her own work, and even complimenting me when things ran smoothly awkwardly, but genuinely. One morning, I walked into the city centre bakery to find her kneading dough with surprising focus. Me, why are you actually on time today? Sophia, yeah, figured I should show I can contribute without causing chaos. I chuckled despite myself. Progress, however small, was still progress. The real test came when we had a big order for a corporate event to over 300 pastries and cakes. Usually, this would have been a joint effort, but after the accusations, I wasn't sure if I could fully trust her. Yet, I decided to let her handle her part while I focused on finances and logistics. Throughout the day, I noticed her moving with purpose, double-checking measurements, and even asking for my advice instead of assuming she knew better. When the final delivery went out without a single mishap, I realised Sophie was really trying to rebuild her credibility. That evening, Dad called a quick family meeting. We sat around the dining table, the smell of fresh baked bread still lingering. Dad, I want to acknowledge the hard work today, Sophia. You handled your part well. Sophia blushed slightly but smiled, the tension easing a little. Sophia, thanks. I want to be better. I don't want to be the person who ruins things for everyone. Me, actions speak louder than words, Sophia. Keep showing us this side of you, and maybe trust can grow again. It wasn't perfect. The staff still gave me knowing looks whenever she walked by, and some customers even commented on the awkward tension in the bakery. But little by little, Sophia's attitude started to shift the atmosphere. She apologised to the employees individually, explaining that she had acted out of jealousy and misjudgment. Some forgave her faster than others, but it was a start. One evening, Marta pulled me aside. Marta, honestly, I didn't think she survived the fallout without creating more drama, but today I think she's finally learning. I nodded, feeling a cautious optimism. Despite the progress, I couldn't ignore the underlying tension. Every smile from Sophia seemed measured, every joke cautious. I knew jealousy didn't vanish overnight, and false accusations leave scars that take time to heal. I also knew that boundaries would be essential going forward. Still, there was hope. Watching Sophia take responsibility, seeing her make real effort to rebuild trust, gave me a sense of cautious relief. I realised that surviving this storm didn't mean everything would instantly go back to normal, but it did mean we were taking steps toward a healthier dynamic, both in the family and in the bakery. And for now, that was enough. The real turning point came a few weeks later, during what Dad called a family strategy day at the main bakery. He'd rented a small conference room in the back, spread charts and ledgers across the table, and wanted us all to discuss long-term plans. I could tell he had more than just business on his mind, he wanted closure. Sofia was nervous, tapping her pen against the table. I glanced at her and caught the flicker of sincerity in her eyes. Maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to face the consequences of her actions fully. Dad, before we get into numbers and expansion, I want us to address the tension from the past month. This is about trust, family, and accountability. Sofia, I know I hurt everyone, I spread lies, and I let jealousy get in the way of what matters, family and the business. I'm sorry. Her voice wavered, but it was genuine. My mom dabbed at her eyes, and even Dad nodded, a rare expression of softness breaking through his usual stern demeanour. Me, I appreciate the apology, Sofia. It means a lot, but trust isn't instant, it's earned. You need to understand that your actions had consequences beyond just words. Sophie nodded solemnly. Sofia, I know, I've already started apologising to the staff individually, and I'm committed to being accountable moving forward. Then Dad laid down the plan. He implemented a new system for checks and balances in the business. Everyone, including Sophia and me, would have dual access to financial records. No single person could make unilateral decisions about money. It was a practical step, but also symbolic. No one could rise by undermining someone else. Dad, this isn't just about the books, it's about respect. Family works best when we respect boundaries and each other's roles. Sophia, I hope you see this as an opportunity to rebuild not just with the staff, but with your sister too. Sophia's eyes glistened. Sophia, I really do. I've learned the hard way that envy and lies only destroy what you love. I never want to get here again. The atmosphere shifted after that. There were still moments of awkwardness, but we all felt a collective relief. The bakery ran smoother, staff morale improved, and even customers noticed the change. Sophia's efforts to make amends were gradual, but genuine, and slowly, the tension between us softened. That night, I walked past the display case, watching her carefully decorate a batch of cupcakes with the precision she'd always been proud of. I realised that while scars remain, growth is possible. Sophia hadn't just survived her own jealousy, she was actively confronting it. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. Family and the family business could heal, even after lies, envy, and false accusations. It wouldn't be perfect, but it could be functional, respectful, and maybe, just maybe, even happy again. Several months passed, and the bakery slowly returned to a sense of normalcy. The city centre location was busier than ever, our seasonal treats were selling out, and the staff were smiling again instead of whispering nervously. Sophia and I still had our differences, but we were learning how to work alongside each other without letting jealousy or resentment take over. One Saturday afternoon, I found myself in the kitchen with her, frosting a batch of lemon tarts side by side. For the first time in weeks, there was no tension, no silent battles, just the rhythm of baking and the smell of fresh pastries. Sophia, you know I never realised how much I took for granted. I thought being creative made me the most important part, but I see now without your organisation, we'd be in chaos. Me, thanks, and I get it. Sophia, you bring flair and vision, something I could never manage. We each have our roles, that's what makes this work. She smiled small but genuine. It wasn't a perfect truce, but it was progress. Dad and Mom noticed the shift too. They complimented both of us on how the bakery was thriving and emphasised that trust had to be mutual. Even the staff seemed more relaxed, joking around and laughing again. Marta pulled me aside one day, grinning. Marta, I didn't think I'd say this, but the tension's finally gone. You two are functioning. Miracles do happen. Sophia's efforts to rebuild trust weren't just performative. She carefully reviewed her financial entries, helped train new employees, and even suggested improvements to streamline operations. Slowly, she regained her place in the business, but this time, with respect earned, not assumed. The biggest lesson, I realised, wasn't just about managing jealousy or defending oneself from false accusations. It was about boundaries, communication, and accountability. Sophia learned the hard way that undermining family and business relationships comes at a high cost. And I learned that confronting problems head-on, while painful, is essential for survival. One evening, I sat with Sophia after closing, sipping coffee and listening to the quiet hum of the bakery. Sophia, I know we'll probably always have our moments, but I want you to know I'm trying. I really am. Me, I see that, and I'm willing to try too. Family isn't perfect, but it's worth protecting. It wasn't a Hollywood-style reconciliation. There were no hugs and tears of joy, just two sisters quietly acknowledging their past mistakes and the effort it would take to move forward. But sometimes that's enough. As I locked up the bakery and glanced at the warm lights in the display windows, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in weeks. We had survived the storm of jealousy, false accusations, and family tension. The business was intact, the staff were thriving, and my sister and I were cautiously rebuilding our relationship. It wouldn't be perfect, and scars would remain, but we had learned to navigate the treacherous waters of family and business, and for the first time, I felt confident that we could weather any future storm together.